Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to do a little bit more styling to these forms. I'd like to rig it so that the label for the form is displayed kind of in the body of the input, and then when we click on it, focus on it, to work on it, that label is going to move out of the way and just move on top. So currently where the label is kind of like our finished state. So let's see, let's head back over to the page. This is where we left off from the previous video. And I'm going to do some modifications to how these labels, the text for the labels is structured inside of the HTML. So what I'm going to end up doing is wrapping some span tags around the label text. I'm going to get rid of that break. I'm not going to need that because I'm going to be doing some positioning here. And I'm going to take the label text, that span, and move it to the right of the input, kind of like that. So for each label, we're going to have the input itself, and then we're going to have a span that has that label text in it, and that's all still within the label tags. So I'm going to take a minute to take care of all of those. Okay, so I've made those changes, and I know it doesn't seem like much, but it's going to be much easier to style an element that's adjacent, that's next to an element that we're focused on. For instance, we can focus on this input, which means clicking on that input, and then we can rig it so that this label does something different. Now, making this change probably is going to have some impact on our form, so don't worry about that right now. We're going to go ahead and fix that up. So let's see, let's move on up to the CSS here, and we're going to have to take care of a few things in here. So let's see, in my label, well, let's see, I'm going to adjust this a bit so that there's another rule. Label, and then with the span inside of it. So label and span inside of it, and that's where a lot of these characteristics are going to go. So let me just go ahead and well, let's do it this way. We'll just go ahead and clean out most of this. So our label is still going to be display block. That's certainly fine. For margin bottom, I'm going to set that to M. That's cool. I'm going to put a margin top on there as 2M as well, because that'll free up a little bit more room. So since our labels are going to move on top, our label text is going to move on top, so that'll be good there. But this is an important step: position relative. Our labels are going to be position relative so that the spans inside of them can be positioned absolutely depending on where we want them to be. So definitely I need to do a display block on the span text, because span is normally inline. So I'm going to do a display block, and then I'm going to do a position absolute. Now, regularly when somebody's just looking at this form, I want that span text to be really right in the middle of the text box. So I'm going to position it 50% from the top, and then just about 10 pixels from the left. I need to do a colon there. Now, when you position something from the top by 50%, that's going to push it down a little bit too far. So I need to raise that span text back up again. So I'm going to do a transform, translate Y, which is up and down movement, -50%, which is going to shift it back upward 50% of the height of the span text. Boy, that's weird. And let's see, let's make this nice and big, font size 1.1 M. That looks good. All right, I think that's pretty nice. Okay, now, when input focus, when I focus on the input, I'm going to take that adjacent span text and style it differently. So when somebody clicks and activates on that input text box, the span text that's adjacent to that input is going to alter. And don't forget, the span text has been shifted. It's now adjacent to the input. Okay, so when this is adjacent, this is going to be easy. It's already position absolute, so I'm just going to change the top positioning to -12 pixels. By doing a negative, that means I'm going up and above and beyond the top of the input. So I'm going to do that. Font size is going to be a bit smaller, 0.8 Ms, and the color of the text is going to be, I guess, just white, because I'm on kind of a dark background. Interesting. Let's see if we have enough to test out what's going on here. Okay, so there's my label text. Now when I click, look at that. See how that label just pops right up there? Now we can slow that down. In our span, we can put a transition in there. I'm going to transition all because I need to change the top positioning and the color. So I'll transition all 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. I think that's going to look pretty good there. Yeah, so it just moves right on up to the top. Cool. Well, it's actually behaving the way I want. However, you can see on focus it works super, but if somebody puts content in there, we need that that label text to stay put. So this is where we're going to throw a little bit of JavaScript in. And so obviously on focus is nice. Where did it go? Oops, that's the wrong CSS file. Right up in here. So that's going to be good. But I'm going to change this as well, not just on focus, but comma, input dot has content span. Now this hasn't occurred yet, but basically I'm going to use JavaScript to look at the input. And if there's a value in there, I'm going to apply a class called has content. And it's going to do the exact same thing as focus will do. So that's pretty good. Now let's go to the HTML, and I think we'll just call our function, which we haven't created yet. Let's just do an onBlur equals, and I need a name for my function. How about check text box? There we go, good enough. So onBlur is going to occur when we leave or exit the text box, and I'll just do that for each of them. A little inefficient, but very, very simple in structure, right? So basically, when I leave, focus is when you go into the text box, onBlur is when I leave that text box. And when I leave that text box, I'm going to get that function invoked. So let me just head down to the lower part of my web page, in the body of my page, but somewhere near the bottom there. And I'm going to create a set of script tags. And let's see, we're going to declare a constant variable here, and that's constant, let's call it input boxes. And that's going to be equal to document.get, no, let's do query selector. Query selector all, that's what I want. Remember, I've got a couple of kinds of boxes to find. I need to find my input type equals text, square bracket, comma, input type equals email. Remember, I've got that email box in there too. Okay, that looks pretty good. So this is basically creating an array. I've got this array now called input boxes, and it's generated from all of the type text boxes and all of the type email boxes that I might have. And those are the only two type of text boxes that I do have. Now I'm going to create my function. My function is, what did I call it? Check text box. Okay. Okay, so we're giving our function a name, and then we're creating a set of curly braces in order to contain the function statements. Now within that, I'm going to do a little for loop action. That's going to involve a set of parentheses and then a set of curly braces for what happens within the loop. All right, so I is going to be equal to 0. That's cool. And as long as I is less than my input boxes, which is my array, dot length. So let's see, the length of my input boxes is going to be the count of the number of text boxes and email boxes I have, which I believe is 5, right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this submit button doesn't get counted in there because it's not a type equals text or type equals email. Okay, so as long as I is less than the length of that, and then I'm going to incrementally increase I. So basically, it's going to run through all of my input boxes here, all 5 of them. Let's see. If. Now for the if, I also have a set of parentheses and then a set of curly braces. So the logical test, what's going to be true? If my input boxes, square bracket I, so when I want to refer to an array item, I'll refer to it by this number in square brackets here, array item 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if array item dot value dot length, the length of its value. If it's greater than 0, that means somebody has typed something in there. Well, if that's true, then I'm going to go to my input boxes, array item I, whichever array item I'm looking at, and I'm going to set the attribute. I'm going to give it a class attribute, and I'm going to set it to, I think it's has content. I think that's what I said. So with my CSS, yeah, so class equals has content. Cool. All right, so I'm giving it a class attribute, and I'm setting the value of that class attribute to has content. I think that's pretty good. Let's control S to save, even though I think I'm auto-saving. Refresh. So if I click on this box, of course my label still does what it's supposed to, but if there's some content in there, oh, we still need to make sure that that's getting saved. So let's make sure we're getting everything proper. Let's see, on blur, my function is check text box, capital T, capital B. That looks pretty good there. Oh, do you catch my mistake there? I misspelled the word length. Length. If the length of the value is greater than 0, let's see, any other typos? Input boxes, I set attribute, class. Now, by the way, if I had my console log open, that probably would have helped me find that mistake. Refresh. In fact, Control-Shift-I. All right, that's what we're going for right there. Nice. So as soon as we click and focus on that text box, our label moves up to the top. And then when we type some content and leave, whether we tab out or click away or anything like that, it's going to stay up there. Excellent. All right. So yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah, a little bit of baby JavaScript in there. Nothing too complicated. A little for loop. We're just running a function on blur whenever we exit that text box. And of course, the key is here is we're going to style our text boxes a certain way. When I say text boxes, I mean the label text. When we focus on the input that's just before the label text, or if we apply that special class to the label text. So yeah, so there we go. That's a good one. And yeah, start styling those up. And I've seen a number of forms that do that little effect. So yeah, give it a shot. Take care.